Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Along with Jim Garrity of National Review, I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Good, bad, and crazy martinis, all related to the somewhat surprising decision by Republican frontrunner Donald Trump to just not show up Thursday night at the Fox News debate in Iowa, being held just 4 days before the first in the nation Iowa caucuses. So most of you are probably familiar with the basics of this story. Kind of started over the weekend when Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager for Donald Trump, suggested that Fox News ought to really consider replacing Megyn Kelly as one of the moderators because she had a really rough couple of days after the last one, and they'd really hate for her to have to go through that again. Then Trump himself escalated it on Tuesday morning with this Instagram video.
Megyn Kelly's really biased against me. She knows that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Do you really think she can be fair at a debate?
So there's that, which might explain the Dole endorsement, since he knows it, she knows it, and everybody knows it. But then Fox News responded with kind of a tongue-in-cheek statement, to say the least, saying, "We learned from secret back channels that the Ayatollah and Putin both intend to treat Donald Trump unfairly when they meet with him if he becomes president. A nefarious source tells us that Trump has his own secret plan to replace the cabinet with his Twitter followers to see if he should even go to those meetings." Well, Trump did not take well to that, which led to this statement Tuesday night.
I didn't like the fact that they sent out press releases talking about Putin and playing games. I don't know what games Roger Ailes is playing, but what's wrong over there? Something's wrong. But when they sent out that press release talking about, I said, what are these people playing games? So most likely, I won't be doing the debate.
Said he's going to do a Wounded Warriors event, and then there was the official statement from the Trump campaign confirming that he won't be at the debate, which is as Trumpian as you can imagine. It starts out by saying, as someone who wrote one of the best-selling business books of all time, The Art of the Deal, who has built an incredible company, including some of the most valuable and iconic assets in the world, and as someone who has a personal net worth of many billions of dollars, Mr. Trump knows a bad deal when he sees one. Fox News is making tens of millions of dollars on debates and setting ratings records, whereas in previous years they were low-rated afterthoughts. Unlike the very stupid, highly incompetent people running our country into the ground, Mr. Trump knows when to walk away. Roger Ailes and Fox News think they can toy with him, but Mr. Trump doesn't play games. He concludes by saying, like running for office as an extremely successful person, this takes guts, and it is the kind of mentality our country needs in order to make America great again. So, Jim, a lot of different ways to look at this. The Trump supporters, of course, think that this shows leadership. Others think it shows that he's a coward. If he can't face Megyn Kelly, how can he face some of the more nefarious people in the world? But ultimately, we might actually get to hear from some of the other candidates here, since Donald Trump not only dominates a lot of the attention at the debates because of his poll numbers, but he obviously sucks up all the media oxygen, too.
We're going to talk about the good aspects and the bad aspects of this, but I genuinely believe there are some good aspects, presuming that Donald Trump doesn't change his mind and make some dramatic last-minute appearance and say, "Oh, I'm such a good guy, I decided to change my mind," you know. I just thinking back, like that first debate that really stuck in Trump's craw, you may recall Bret Baier and Megyn Kelly asked tough questions of every single one of the candidates. The idea that, that Trump felt singled out for that. I mean, look, she asked him about his past statements about Rosie O'Donnell and various other figures, and, is this becoming of a president? And if you find that unfair or out of line or ridiculous, you really shouldn't be running for president, because everybody's past statements, everybody's past record is fair game. That's the way it's always done. Oh, Trump wants to change the rules here. So why is this good? Well, if you're, like most of the folks affiliated with the National Review and a lot of folks who are not Trump fans, the idea of a serious debate amongst, Rubio and Cruz and the whole rest of the crowd sounds really appealing. Right? All of a sudden we're not going to get the good train of thought interrupted by Trump saying, "Hey, look at my numbers here. I got really good numbers," and going off on a long diatribe about how well he's doing in the polls, instead of answering the question or discussing the topic at hand. If we can get through a debate without any of that from Trump and any of Chris Christie's, "I'm tired of all this jibber jabber from these legislators. I'm a man of action." If we can get rid of both of those, it'll be the best debate ever. Look, this is revealing to me. This is it could end up being a really good debate. There were some actually really good exchanges between Rubio and Cruz towards the end of the last debate. because we had, them actually discussing immigration policy. And Rubio was like, look, you've changed your position on a whole bunch of issues. I changed my position on this one. Why is it different? It was, we actually started getting somewhere, it felt like. And the idea of Trump not being on that stage might make for a better debate. Also, look, Trump has been threatening to boycott the debate or stay home, or I want the CNN to donate some of the money they make from this to veterans charities. Look, if you don't want to debate, Donald, don't debate. No one's forcing you to. There's no gun to your head. Go right ahead. Stay home. This might hurt him. This might help him. I think the fact that this debate is this is brilliant. Trump is manipulating the media. He's showing who's boss, etc. The debate is in Iowa. I have this sneaking suspicion that there are some Iowans, not a lot, the good chunk of his Trump supporters are dedicated and not going to be easily shaken. But I think there'll be a good chunk of people in Iowa who won't just see this sympathetically or positively. And if we see a drop in the final couple of days here for Trump, then there's a good chance that maybe this is rubbing some people the wrong way.
That's certainly possible, and we'll find out. It not only could be with some of the people who might be leaning towards him, but in these caucuses, isn't it that if your guy doesn't get 15% in your particular location, you end up voting for somebody else in order to keep everybody who actually gets votes over 15%. So some of those people who would be supporting other candidates but don't get to that certain level might end up going in an opposite direction. So
yeah, here's the other thing I should notice. I've been pretty anti-Iowa caucus for a long time now. And this is not just mere jealousy reflected in the 49 other states. Iowa is very quirky. They really care about ethanol subsidies. And to the extent most conservatives care about ethanol subsidies, we don't like them. We don't like the federal government saying you have to put corn in your car. Corn belongs in chip form, all right? It does not belong in our cars. It doesn't make economic sense. It's not good for food prices. It's not good for world starvation. It's not that good for the environment, and it's not something the federal government should be subsidizing. But because it's popular in Iowa, there is just this jihad against Ted Cruz right now. The governor's come out against it, and Donald Trump is running on more of it and more regulations and more subsidies. This is one of the reasons we argue he's not conservative. So, look, maybe we'll get a really good topic about that and a discussion about that in the debate. And we won't have Trump saying, subsidies and regulations are awesome. Let's have more of them.
All right, on to the bad martini now. And obviously, when you can have carefully crafted media campaigns and you can, in a very short interview with some media outlets, you can kind of dodge tough questions. In a debate format, obviously, it's much tougher to completely dodge the question. People get a much better unvarnished look at your message when you don't know exactly what questions are coming your way. And if Donald Trump starts a trend here, it could be that people who just don't think a debate helps them just stays out of the fray. I can probably imagine Hillary Clinton potentially doing this. She has been willing to stay away from the media as much as possible at different stretches of this campaign when she thinks it might be to her advantage. So ultimately, the consumer, the voter, could be at a disadvantage if this trend catches on.
We don't remember the DNC decided we're only going to have 6 debates, and 4 of them were going to be, only 4 of them before Iowa. And they were going to be on the Saturday nights. They were going to go up against football. Yes. They were going to go up against opening weekend of Star Wars. Everything conceivable, the last weekend before Christmas, every conceivable date where people might be doing other things, they were scheduling the debates. And look, if you were the frontrunner, as Hillary Clinton began this process, you don't want to debate. Things can only go wrong for you. The status quo is good. That's one of the reasons Donald Trump can afford to say, look, I don't like the moderator. I'm not going to do this debate. You don't see Jim Gilmore doing that. In fact, Jim Gilmore will actually be on the undercard debate, for those of you who've forgotten what he looked like, because he hasn't been invited to any of them since the first one. I guess this is like Old Timers Day, or some other kind of, everybody, it's like, it's like the closing number of a musical. Everybody comes back on stage, they take their bows. Look, Santorum, Huckabee, these guys are not in a position to turn anything down. When you're a front runner, you can say, well, look, I'm not going to, I'm not putting up with this. I'm not dealing with this. This moderator's biased. To heck with this. I think you're going to see more of this. If this pans out for Trump, then every front runner in the future is going to have a good reason to say, look, this is not going to hurt me. There's no consequence. I don't have to do these debates. I'm ahead in the polls, and I'm going to stay ahead of the polls. We'll see if there's any punishment for this, but I have a feeling you're going to see more of it. The other thing is that there was this, apparently this conference call before the debate, and Trump's campaign manager said something, as you mentioned in the description of this, Kelly went through a hard time last time. We'd hate to see it happen again. Look, this is American politics. The debate moderator can ask whatever the heck they want, the candidates can respond any way they want. And if afterwards Trump and his team think Megyn Kelly did a terrible job, they're free to say that. Like, why is everybody terrified of this? Let this go on. Let this keep going. There's a very strange kind of veiled threat tone to that. And you know what? Look, I thought the sarcastic press release from Fox News was perfectly fine. If you can't handle Megyn Kelly, you don't think the presidency is going to give you tougher calls and tougher moments, more difficult decisions and tougher obstacles than Megyn Kelly's questioning? Really? There is something very strange about this, and I haven't gotten to Donald Trump's 2011 quote that it takes a certain amount of courage to go and do a debate.
That was 2011 though, Jim. Come on.
2011, yeah, it's lots changed since then. Greg, that was back when Katrina Pearson was saying we shouldn't work with Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama. Good times back then.
What do you make of the Democrats throwing another event in between Iowa and New Hampshire that was previously unscheduled? This one's an NBC debate with Chuck Todd and Rachel Maddow asking the questions, and now Bernie Sanders saying since the DNC didn't sanction this, at this point he's not planning to go. So that puts not only Debbie Wasserman Schultz in a pickle, but potentially gives Hillary Clinton another free stage.
Yeah, if you're Hillary, you got to do it. What I said in that previous Martini, that look, when you're behind, you want as many debates as possible. It gives you a chance to say, look, here's why I'm the better choice. Here's what's the weakness of the front runner. Here's why you should rethink your current support for the front runner. If you're the front runner, you don't want the debate. If you're the front runner, you just want election day to get here. You want, you want to just take a knee, run out the clock, and that's the incentive. Now, all of a sudden, the fact that Hillary's eager to do more debates indicates she's not the front runner she was. And I think it's probably an open question of whether she really is still the front runner in the Democratic race.
Yeah, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz was going to drop the hammer on anybody who participated in something not sanctioned by the DNC. Something tells me she's going to be kind of like a pro wrestling referee and be thoroughly distracted when this goes on and not really have any punishment for NBC or for any campaign that takes place.
She will drop the hammer on anyone who participates in an unsanctioned debate except Hillary. Or maybe it's a Nerf hammer.
All right, on to the crazy martini now, and leave it to Chris Matthews over at NBC to really just be completely disgusting and distasteful about what is left on the debate stage for the Republicans Thursday night if Trump is not there. He, of course, is going to get blowback from conservatives on this, but ultimately from his network, probably nothing. Here is what he said.
Who's going to watch a debate between the two Cuban guys? Who's going to watch a debate between Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz? Who cares? Because, they've been sort of fighting it in this little interleague fight about who's the hawkish guy or whatever. Who's going to watch that Thursday night? Maybe I'm building it up too much.
Come on, Jim. Well, now we're just left with two Cuban guys. Who cares?
Now, these are the same two guys who Chris Matthews said weren't really Hispanic. Greg, Chris Matthews is a jackass. And we've got to know this for quite some time. Feel free to bleep that if you feel the need on our otherwise, family-friendly podcast. This is who Chris Matthews is. You're either not Hispanic enough to count in his book, or there's something strange and alien about you. You're not really fully American. Now, the only other point I would add to this, Greg, is that if you're really going to, try to knock Ted Cruz these days, the knock is not that he's Cuban, it's that he's Canadian, right?
Right.
I mean, make up your mind. If you're going to say there's something strange and alien and un-American about him, at least pick a country and stick to it.
Well, they both start with C. Here's the little local story, though.
He's from Canuba.
Chris Matthews' wife, Kathleen Matthews, what used to be a local news anchor here in Washington, now she is running for the Democratic nomination for the House for the seat currently held by Chris Van Hollen, who is running for Senate. If you're a Democrat running for that nomination, it's a pretty Democratic seat, or the eventual Republican nominee, why not record every one of these ridiculously stupid and insensitive Chris Matthews statement and just play the button during the primary campaign and the general election and make Kathleen Matthews own this? Because, every Republican has had to answer for people completely unrelated to them in other parts of the country. Kathleen Matthews should have to answer for Chris Matthews.
I can think of that working one of two ways, Greg. The first would be just play all Chris Matthews' greatest hits and say, if Kathleen Matthews has this kind of judgment in a husband, can we really trust that kind of judgment in Congress? Yes. But I could very easily turn that around and kind of, run this as a pro Kathleen Matthews ad. Greg, you just run the whole tape and then say, if Kathleen Matthews has the patience and understanding to deal with this, clearly she has the patience and understanding to get results in Congress. Particularly after the attack ads go after Kathleen Matthews. You just run the Chris Matthews and tape and say, look, hasn't Kathleen Matthews suffered enough?
Yes, it cuts both ways. Well, should make for an interesting another 24 to 36 hours here, and we'll see what the debate provides for us on Thursday. But a fun pregame that we didn't expect. Jim, talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and tune in again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.